Good day everyone. Today we're going to talk about trait and personality theories. Along the way, we're going to talk about its view on the human nature, the biographical background of its forerunners, concepts of their theories, criticism and personal evaluation. First, let us talk first how trait is used in defining personality. One of the basic assumptions that trait theory has is that people possess an extensive nature called trait to respond in a particular way. Trait is defined as characteristic patterns of behavior that can be assessed using a variety of methods. The trait theory supports the idea that traits vary from person to person and that traits remain constant and have influence on human behavior. These different combination of traits found in each person are the ones that make individual unique. Trait theories therefore focused on the differences of people with relation to their personality traits compared to the general population. The forerunners of the personality trait theories are Gordon Allport, Raymond Cattell, and Henry Murray. First, let us talk about Gordon Allport's The Psychology of Individuals. Gordon W. Allport was born in Montezuma, Indiana, the youngest of four sons of John Edward Allport and Nellie Edith Weiss. He worked as an instructor in psychology and began teaching his course, Personality, its Psychological and Social Aspects, in 1924, and probably the first course in personality psychology ever taught in the United States. Allport was a long-time and influential member of the faculty at Harvard University from 1930 to 1967. In 1931, he served as the faculty committee that established Harvard's Sociology Department. He received also the American Psychological Association's Distinguished Scientific Contribution Award and died October 9, 1967 in Cambridge, Massachusetts of lung cancer. He was 70 years old. Allport was one of the first psychologists to study of the personal traits. His focus on the uniqueness of an individual and importance of the present context and opposed the past history. For Allport, the emotionally healthy adults are not tied to or driven by childhood conflicts. Thus, his theory presents an optimistic view of adults in conscious control of their lives, rationally attending the current situation, planning for the future, and actively fashioning an identity. To Allport, the ultimate and necessary goal of life is not to reduce tension as Freud proposed, but rather to increase tension, impelling us to continually seek new sensation and challenges. Allport's view of humanity is more teleological than causal. Personality, to some extent, is influenced by past experience, but the behaviors that makes us human are those that are motivated by our expectation of the future. Thus, Allport held an optimistic view of humanity, maintaining that people have at least limited knowledge. He was often critical to those views that allows for absolute freedom, but he also opposed the psychoanalytic and behavioral views, which he regarded as denying free will and being too deterministic and mechanistic. For him, human beings are goal-oriented, proactive, and motivated by a variety of forces, most of which are within the realm of their consciousness. The psychology of individuals. Allport viewed psychology as the study of a healthy person. Allport's theory is known as the trait theory because he emphasized the nature and evolution of the personality traits. His emphasis on the person's uniqueness gave rise to the psychology of individuals. Allport was certain that motivation is always a contemporary process. An individual's current self-image is far more important than whatever he or she has been in the past. And according to Allport, trait defines the person's uniqueness and is a distinguishing characteristic that guides our behavior. To Allport, traits are measured on a continuum and are subject to social, environmental, and cultural influences that all humans has common traits and individual traits. Common traits refers to characteristics which are more general than habit and attitude in respect to which people in a population can be successfully compared. Examples of these are the kuripot of the Ilocano people, the bravery of the Oragons, and the excellent cook of the Kapampangans. Those are some example of common traits. However, individual traits refers to behavioral characteristics that are not found in all persons and uniquely available to a specific individual. Allport originally used the word traits, but found that so many people assumed he meant traits as perceived by an spectator or measured by personality tests, rather than as unique individual characteristics, so he changed it from traits into disposition. For Allport, there are 3 dispositions for an individual. First, the cardinal disposition, which he refers to as the trait that dominates and shapes a person's behavior, often to a point that the person becomes known specifically for these traits. For example, have you been asked what is your name and who is your father? And then some people will say, yeah, kaya pala ganyan yung ugali mo. So those are example of cardinal disposition. Being narcissist, character like martyrs, and Christ-like characters. Second disposition according to Allport is the central disposition, which he refers to as the characteristics that control less of the person's behavior but are nevertheless important. These are the basic building blocks that shapes most of human behavior. Example of these are honesty, kindness, love, funny, and among others. Then lastly, the secondary disposition refers to characteristics seen only on certain circumstances. These traits are sometimes related to attitudes or preference, or often appear only under specific circumstances. For example, being anxious when speaking in a public, or being impatient in line, or the Filipino resiliency during typhoon. So those are characteristics or attitudes that appears only under specific circumstances. According to Allport, there are 8 criteria of traits. First is traits have more than nominal existence. So no traits is insignificant. Second is that traits are more generalized than habits. Habits for him seems to be the surface of the iceberg, and there are much more into it. Third is that traits are dynamic, or at least determinative. He meant that traits are active and constantly at odds with each other. Fourth is that traits may be established empirically or statistically. It can be observed, or it can be computed. 5, traits are only relatively independent to each other. 6, traits are not the same as the moral quality. 7. Traits, acts, and habits that are inconsistent with traits are not proof of the non-existent trait. And then lastly, traits are present within the personality that contains it or within a population at large. So Allport theory also shows the characteristics of maturity. For him, a matured personality should have an extension of the sense of self, which the individual participates in activities that shows diverse interest. Second is warm related to others. The individual respects and appreciates the rights of other people. Third is that the individual has self-acceptance. He accepts frustrating situation and has an optimistic point of view. An individual realizes realistic perception of reality. The individual does not continually distort reality around him or her. Objectification. The individual looks at situation in an objective manner and solves the practical problem with everyday living. And lastly, the individual should have unifying principle in life. The individual must have a sense of purpose, belief, or goal in life. Allport development of maturity believes that the development of a mature personality takes time and that only adults are capable in coming close to self-realization. As to their self-development, children also learn to protect themselves against threats through the use of various defensive strategies. According to Allport, the stages of sense of self has 7 levels. First is the biological drive, which brought the awareness of bodily function and physiological system. The self-identity, which brings the awareness of who am I and the relationship of the individual with others. The self-esteem, the exploration of one's world. The expression of self concerns with the importance of possession. The self-image, awareness of social expectation. Self as a rational coper. The ability to find solution in the midst of problems, and appropriate striving, which focuses on life goals and intentions. So some criticism to Allport's theory is that concepts of Allport is difficult to translate from specific terms and proposition to suitable for study. Allport's emphasis on the uniqueness of personality has been challenged also because his position focuses so exclusively on the individual which is impossible to generalize from one person to another. So Allport's theory as a whole has earned little research to test its proposals. His approach to research opposed to the current contemporary psychology, which focuses on the study of large subject groups through sophisticated statistical analysis. Also, Allport focuses on emotionally healthy adults, was at different with the then predominant position in clinical psychology, which focuses on the mentally challenged individual. So we are going to stop first for the video, and we're going to proceed later on to the second part of the presentation, which is Raymond Cattell's factor analytical trait theory. Again, thank you and see you on the second part of the video.